Welcome to Table Salt. Today we are doing week 7 of the Hebrew series, and I am joined today by Pastor Jeremy Fisher, who is a friend of the show, all-time favorite guest. Man, so glad to have you back.
Love being here, dude. Yeah.
We have some of the best conversations.
Yes, I love it.
I'm blown away by this topic, especially because it is so central to who we are as a people, because we're always saying by faith you will be saved. And this is not by works, but this whole idea of faith and this finally Hebrews chapter 11, we're setting this all out.
The Hall of Faith, man.
The Hall of Faith. It's just incredible.
Yes, man. Church culture, this is a famous chapter. Yeah. People love it.
And I want to dive into it, but this whole series in Hebrews has been really challenging. And we have this week and then next week, and then I believe the series wraps up. And so as you preached through this whole series, was there like a lesson that really popped out to you that meant a lot to you personally?
Yeah. So, for some reason, week 1, when we first started the Hebrews walkthrough, I was studying. I remember, you've heard the term like context is king or context is key, whatever. I was reading about the story behind the story, kind of, and who this letter was being sent to. And as the author is writing this whole thing, I was reading about the drama that was unfolding for this early church and hearing some of the stories about just the barbaric thing some of those people were going through as they were trying to cling to the faith.
Oh, like, for sure.
If you hear about the Roman Emperor Nero, you've ever heard of Nero's candles, like they were living, breathing people who were literally being used as the pyrotechnics
for sure
in Nero's lavish parties. He was lighting them on fire and he was killing these people. And then afterwards, you've got this small church that's being persecuted. And naturally, the people are thinking to themselves, man, I thought this Jesus thing was going to be like all benefit. I thought this was supposed to be a good thing. And now I'm really tempted to walk. And so when we started that first day of study over the walkthrough in Hebrews, I remember thinking like, man, if you don't understand, if you don't grasp who this is being written to and the circumstances behind it, it all just kind of feels a little hollow, right? Like it's the desperation of the people. And so every time you read that Jesus is better than this, or Jesus is better than that, or Jesus is better than life itself, now you start to realize like, oh.
Yeah, and because there's a sense where, I don't want to use this word apologetic, but I'm going to use this word apologetic, where the writer of the book of Hebrews is saying, your temptation when you're scared is to go back to what you know.
Oh, yes.
And because that's what we do. We just, 100%. Because we're safe there.
Yes.
We're safe there. We understand it. And this whole thing is new.
Right.
And so the writer of the book of Hebrews is saying, I know you want to go back to what you know because you're scared and you're suffering and this is hard. But let me tell you why Jesus is a better, all of the things Jesus is a better version of that. So you want to stick with that.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad you said that when you get scared or hurt or life doesn't go the way you want it to, you kind of revert back to what you know. And that's so true. Like I was reading earlier, and we'll cover this in today in the sermon on Sunday. I don't want to jump ahead or anything, but that's kind of like when we face doubt in life, that's sort of what we do a lot of times is we go back to what we knew, what was familiar, because maybe faith is too risky, or disbelief in Jesus, maybe it's not quite what we thought it was going to be. And doubt kind of gets pegged as this scary, hairy creature, that we don't want to face. And it's just easy to fall back on what you did previously to escape that,
Yeah. Because even if it was terrible, you knew how to handle it.
Oh, it's Egypt, right?
Yeah.
Oh, these chains are golden. This is terrible, but hey, we're getting fed 3 meals a day, right?
And you just realize, oh man, I'm having like flashbacks and memories from my own life of, just where you just realize in so many ways that as you're progressing in your faith, God is sanctifying you. And so it becomes time to deal with issues in new, healthy, godly ways. And you're just like, I know I'm super stressed right now, and my habit was to drink or to treat my children badly or to be angry. And now I'm trying to be godly, and and God is sanctifying me in that. But what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know how to be different.
Yeah.
And at least when I was angry, I was doing something.
Yeah. Yeah. That felt like natural or normal or whatever. I sat with a woman the other day. She had lost her spouse a little while back, and she was just telling me that since she put her faith in Jesus, she was so certain that life was gonna get better, right? Like,
Right.
and I'm not certain where that idea develops, but we all have that. I feel like there's an expectation that when I've put my faith in Him, suddenly circumstances are to my liking. The bank account explodes. The fortune and the favor comes my way, and favor does come your way. It just doesn't always look like the way that you want.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing.
Tricky. And I kind of want to pull back because ultimately what that creates in us is doubt.
Doubt.
And I feel like the dirty truth, and you're as pastor, guide me here, like coach me in this. It feels like the more faith exists because more doubt is on the table. Is that a wrong perspective? Like doubt and faith increase incrementally with each other as we experience it?
Well, okay. Now, here's what I tell people that I love this. I'm not gonna get too preachy on this.
I want to preach me.
Dude,
preach me.
I love this thought, okay?
Yeah.
So oftentimes I just think, God, if you would just appear and give me a visual, I will have every reason to believe. Like if God existed in the iPhone era, you could upload the resurrection to YouTube. I'd watch it. I'd send it to friends. That'd be awesome. I'd have all the faith in the world.
No, you wouldn't, because you'd be like, that's CG.
You'd be like, no, that's just Photoshop. There's no way this is real.
That's not real.
Still, you would have it'd be, people would be saying deep fake. Like, let's not let's not think that just because you saw it. No, this works. This works. But the way I think about faith is it's not that doubt is the opposite. We'll cover this on Sunday. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. Sight is the opposite of faith. Like, we live by faith, not by sight.
Oh, interesting.
Doubt and faith, like I love this. They exist. They're not mutually exclusive. Like, they can exist together. That's why this is what I'm saying. I love this so much. John the Baptist.
Yeah.
He, like, literally in his mother's womb, leaps the closer he gets to Jesus, right? When Mary approaches. This is John the Baptist, who hears the voice from heaven as he's baptizing the Son of God, right? This is John the Baptist he was the voice crying in the wilderness. There's not a lot of people who have a clearer vantage point of who Jesus is than John the Baptist, right? And yet still, in Matthew 11, I read this morning. I stopped when I read this and got a little choked up. And yet still, in Matthew 11, when John is imprisoned, he sends his disciples to Jesus. Do you remember this? To ask, are you really who you say you are, or are we waiting on somebody else?
Yeah.
That makes me think, Rocky, that God is not disappointed in me asking tough questions, and that there's no shame in me investigating my faith. In fact, the unexamined faith, it's not worth believing.
Is there a point, though, where our questions become heresy?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm sorry I keep coming back to some sort of illustrative thing here, but
that's okay.
Like, C.S. Lewis has this quote where he says something about the whole idea behind seeing through something is so that you can see what is actually there. If you just keep seeing through things just to see through things, eventually you're still looking at nothing.
Right.
Like, you're just seeing through just to see through. You're not really looking for answers. You're just trying to punch holes in things. Yeah, I think there does come a point when it's like, okay, are you investigating your faith here? Are you trying to grow this here? Or are you simply just putting off your belief? Does that make sense?
Punching holes.
Yes. Like, at the core of doubt, Tim Keller says something about how, like, at the core, if you do an autopsy on doubt, at the core of it, when you peel apart the layers of it, you'll find one or a combination of these things. You'll find disappointment.
Right.
You'll find pain from life that keeps you from really going all in. You'll find rebellion, where
Right.
it's like, I don't want to believe because this goes against my sexual ethic, my identity, what I consider to be right and wrong. This goes against whatever, some combination of those
Right.
things, If your doubting is simply just there to keep you from buying into something, to buy time, to punch holes, then
So you're
I
so
just wonder, like,
you're going to find what you're looking for.
yeah, right?
Yeah, you're going to find if you're like examining your faith for the purpose of being strengthened and like making sure that, because John the Baptist was making sacrifices, like he was living his life,
yes.
and at the at the end of his life, he wants to know, like,
Yeah.
is all of this worth it? Because
Yes.
is what I believe true?
Right.
As opposed to if you're searching and you're saying this is costing me too much, so I need to find all of the reasons why it's not worth the cost. Whether you're looking to find if it's worth it or if it's not, you're going to find what you're looking for. Is that
yeah, totally, man. What I just keep coming back to, just pointing back to this over and over, is God isn't scared about your questions.
Right.
He's, he doesn't need help across the road like a little old lady. He's got his big boy pants on. He can stand up to the investigation. Just make sure, I would say, on the role of the seeker, is that make sure that you're seeking and it's not just delaying your belief in something.
And be honest about what your
Be
intentions,
honest, yeah.
intentions are
Yeah.
for sure. So there's this part in the sermon where you guys talk about faith. Hebrews 11:6, and without faith it is impossible to please him. For who would ever draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him.
Yep.
Okay, so without faith it's impossible to please God.
Yep.
But the implication here is that part of that faith process is that I believe there's a reward.
Yeah.
Could you unpack that for me? Because is this health and wealth?
Bro, this blew my mind the first time I read it, because I have lived most of my life thinking that the noble thing was to have no expectation of God, right?
Right.
He's God. He will do what he wants. I'm just on his time clock here. Do whatever you want, God. I thought that was the noble thing. And that's a fine posture to be in, but it's not complete. I think the mature person in their faith would say, I'm here to do God's bidding. I'm here for God's will. But I expect that there's going to be a reward at this, because not because of my goodness, but because he's good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, aren't you? I'm insulted, at least, when my children come to me with low expectations of me.
Yeah.
Today, Emery, she asked me to play with her in the backyard before I left for work. And I said, no, I can't. And she said, well, that's fine. Even when she said something like, when you go outside, you just sit in mom's chair anyway.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, her view of me is so low. When I really want to go out there and have fun, have a blast, create memories, do these things for her, not because she's great, she is, but because I got a name to uphold here. I'm a good dad. I want to be a good father here.
So I'm wanting to be very vulnerable right here. And like, the reason that I want to be vulnerable is not because I have not processed this on my own. So I just want to kind of say that myself. But I think that this is where it gets hairy. And this is where we go back to Hebrews chapter 1. Like, I know that this is going to be hard and that you're going to want to return to the things that you know. So for me, everybody, like, I'm the single pastor guy, right? So when I was growing up, like, there was abuse and family issues and things like that. And as I kind of processed that as a kid, counselor was like, oh, it's okay. One of these days you'll have your own family and you'll get to have father-son relationships and you'll get to have all of that. And so for years, you hold on to that and you're like, oh, this is the promise and this is the thing that I'm working for. Like, I'm living a good life and I'm expecting this reward. But of course, for me, that was not God's plan for my life. And that's not been my experience. And it took a long time to parse that out. And what does that mean? And what is God doing in this? And what was the point of all of that? And what was I hoping that he will reward me with?
Yeah.
So for me, it was family. For somebody else, it might be wealth. For somebody else, it might be heaven. For somebody else, it might be cancer-free. It might be all of these things. And yet Scripture says this, and I would say, well, we act in faith, but yet I'm still disappointed in some ways. Pastor?
I have a not easy answer.
I want to hear it. Yeah.
To tag along with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just for the sake of time here, I have very similar, different contexts, but very similar things that I have asked God for and have not seen the fulfillment of. Things along the way that created doubt because I felt cheated. Things that I was just so certain that were going to be part of my life that God chose to not reward me with. And what I have returned to over and over is the same thing that I think the writer of Hebrews has sent to that early church that he wrote in so many different ways, chapter after chapter after chapter. He said he's better than the priesthood. He's better than all of creation. He's better than angels. He's better than anything that you can imagine. Maybe you don't get on this side of heaven the things that you desire.
Right.
But Jesus is better.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing.
No, it absolutely is.
And
a hard
it's
thing.
like, man, I have a desire for this. But in the end, the thing that my heart is truly longing for, it's Jesus. And it may not, on this side of heaven, I may not get to have that thing that I want so badly, but someday I will experience the satisfaction,
for sure,
the fulfillment, the love that I've desired so deeply. Like the arms growing up, the arms that I was searching for, and I'm not going to get emotional saying this here, but for me, growing up without a father, like this whole time, the arms that I was searching for, that I was longing for, they have always been the arms of Jesus.
Yeah. And I think that is kind of where the challenge of growing in our faith really ends up, is like, there are parts where it is really hard, where it is really difficult, where it is really scary. And once we've decided to be on this path, we have to rely on that faith, and we have to expect reward, even if it doesn't look because ultimately the challenge of faith, and this is a big statement here, and we're ready to have a conversation with you about it. But the challenge of faith is that God demands that we conform to his will. And when we struggle most in our faith, it's because we desire that God is conforming to us.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. And that process is always difficult. But in that situation, even if it makes you angry, the truth is that he is God and we are not.
Yeah.
But he loves us very much.
Yeah.
And we have to trust that is the truth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and some of the things that I thank God the most for, it's strange on this side of things. Like I look back on it, some of the things I thank God the most for were things I desired so much in the moment that I did not receive. And I look back in hindsight now and I say, thank you, God. Yeah. He gives good gifts. The gifts are not always physical, temporal. Some of them are. But, I think the mature Christian understands the best gifts from God are those spiritual ones. And again, we will find all the fulfillment we're looking for on the other side of this world.
For sure. Absolutely.
He's better.
And we have each other to encourage.
That's right. To move us there. Yeah.
Move us through that process. Yeah. Hey, if you are using this for your community group material, you guys have some challenging things to discuss. Yeah. I hope that you would risk it, that you would be vulnerable and talk about your faith experience. And the way that God has helped you move past all of that. Because when we share our stories, it actually encourages everybody else, that the entire body of Christ benefits. If you're just finding this, if you loved this episode, if you have comments, if you think we're idiots, let us know.
Let us know. Come on.
Let us know in the comments. I'm deleting comments all day. No, I'm just kidding. We're happy to hear that. And if you missed this sermon, of course, right here on the same channel on our YouTube, you can watch this entire series and you will benefit from it. We love you guys, and we will see you next time.